Good afternoon. Today's Wednesday. It's a Members' Day. I'm lucky to be sharing this session with Adrian Ruruwhai, who is the Deputy Speaker. He's the person who stands in for me a lot of the time in the chair and also does much of the committee work of the whole House. Today we're going to start off with questions to ministers. Duncan Webb to the Minister of Finance about reaction to the government's housing policy. Judith Collins to the Prime Minister about whether she stands by her statements and actions. Anahela Kaunongataha Suisuiki to the Minister of Housing about support for first home buyers. Julianne Genter to the Minister of Finance about the affordability of housing. Glenn Bennett to the Minister for Social Development about employment in the construction sector. Andrew Bailey to the Minister of Finance, whether he stands by his statements and actions. Brooke Van Velden to the Prime Minister about the housing policy. Barbara Edmonds to the Minister of Revenue about the Bright Line test and interest deductibility rules. Nicola Willis is to the Housing Acceleration Fund. Dr. Anai Nerulevasa to the Minister of Foreign Affairs about our support for Pacific countries fighting COVID. Nick Smith to the Minister of Research, Science and Innovation about the government's policies in reaction to them. And Helen White to the Minister of Transport about keeping trade going.
And following that, we will have the general debate, 12 5-minute speeches, and I'm kind of expecting to hear a lot about housing today. And then after the general debate, we'll go into members' orders of the day. And the first bill up is a bill that is sponsored by Ginny Anderson, and it's the Holidays Bereavement Leave for Miscarriage Amendment Bill number 2, and this bill gives provisions for an unplanned end to a pregnancy for a mother to have up to 3 days leave along with her partner or spouse. So that's a change for that bill.
Mm-hmm. And after that bill, or maybe even during that bill, we're going to switch over to do some maiden statements. We've got 3 members who were elected last year who still haven't made their formal maiden statements to the Parliament. Penny Simmons, James Mooney and Chris Luxon. That will start at 5:15, roughly a quarter of an hour each, although my experience is that once you move the crowds around in the gallery, you never quite get through them in a quarter of an hour.
And then we will go to further members' business, and then the next one up is the Lawyers and Conveyances Employed Lawyers Providing Free Legal Services Amendment Bill in the name of Chris Bishop. And this member's bill amends the Lawyers and Conveyances Act 2006 to allow a lawyer who is an employee to do free legal work other than for the lawyer's employer. I think it's called pro bono work.
Yep.
Which is on conditions set out by the New Zealand Law Society. Following that, we have the Companies Limited Partnership Identical Names Prohibition Amendment Bill. Its first reading in the name of Chris Penk. This bill rectifies an anomaly between the Companies Act 1993 and the Limited Partnerships Act 2008 in relation to identical or nearly identical names across entity types. Then we have the Corrections School Notification of Sex Offenders Amendment Bill in the name of Matt Ducey, and this member's bill seeks to ensure that when a sex offender is placed in a community, the principals of the local schools are notified about that placement. And then we have the adverse weather affected timber recovery on conservation lands bill in the name of Maureen Pugh. That's a first reading as well. And this members' bill seeks to allow the Director General of Conservation to grant access for removal of specific trees irreversibly damaged by an adverse weather event from certain conservation areas.
And maybe we'll get to the last one, and maybe we won't, but we'll finish up at 10 o'clock tonight, and we will have select committees tomorrow morning, on Thursday morning, and tomorrow will be the last sitting day of this block. So see you at 2 o'clock tomorrow.